Chapter 1. The Arrival. It was the summer of 1952 when my family and I pulled up to our new home in Chicago, Illinois. The city was buzzing with post-war energy, skyscrapers piercing the sky like ambitious fingers reaching for prosperity. But we weren't in the heart of the loop. No, we had chosen a quieter neighborhood on the south side, a place called Englewood. The house was a Victorian relic, tall and narrow with faded gingerbread trim and a wraparound porch that creaked underfoot like it was whispering secrets. My father, Robert Harlan, had gotten a job at the steel mills, and this was our fresh start after years of scraping by in rural Indiana. I was 14 then, a lanky kid named Jack Harlan, with a mop of brown hair and a curiosity that often got me into trouble. My mother, Evelyn, was the steady one, always humming hymns while she unpacked boxes. My little sister, Mary, was 8 and full of wide-eyed wonder, clutching her rag doll as if it were a lifeline. We arrived on a sweltering July afternoon, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke from the nearby trains. Dad parked our old Ford in the driveway, and we all stepped out, stretching our legs after the long drive. The previous owners had left in a hurry, or so the real estate agent said. "Family emergency," he muttered, avoiding our eyes. The house felt empty but not vacant, like it was holding its breath. As we carried in our belongings, I noticed odd details. A faint stain on the living room wallpaper that looked like a handprint, and scratches on the basement door as if something had tried to claw its way out. Mom dismissed it as wear and tear from years of living. Dad was too busy dreaming about promotions to notice. Mary and I explored the attic, finding dusty trunks filled with yellowed newspapers from the 1920s, headlines screaming about gangsters and prohibition raids. It was exciting, like stepping into a storybook. That first night, we ate sandwiches on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the yard. The neighborhood was mixed, families like ours, some immigrants from Europe, others from the South seeking better lives. Kids played stickball in the street, their laughter echoing. I felt a thrill of possibility. But as darkness fell, a chill crept in despite the heat. From my bedroom window on the second floor, I thought I saw a shadow move in the backyard, near the old oak tree. I blinked and it was gone. Probably just a neighbor's cat, I told myself. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by the distant wail of a train whistle that sounded almost like a scream. Chapter 2. Settling in. The days blurred into a routine as we settled into our new life. Dad left early for the mill, his lunch pail swinging, while Mom tackled the house with vigor, scrubbing floors and hanging curtains. Mary started at the local elementary school, making friends quickly with her infectious giggle. I enrolled at Englewood High, a sprawling brick building where I navigated hallways filled with teenagers in Letterman jackets and poodle skirts. I wasn't athletic, but I had a knack for stories, joining the school newspaper club where I wrote about local events. Our house began to feel like home, though peculiarities persisted. The plumbing groaned at odd hours, and the lights flickered during storms. One afternoon, while helping Mom in the kitchen, I found an old locket in a drawer, its chain tarnished, containing a faded photo of a young woman with sad eyes. "Must have been left behind," Mom said, tucking it away. I couldn't shake the feeling it belonged to someone important. Neighbors dropped by with casseroles and advice. Mrs. Thompson next door, a widow in her 60s, warned us about the area's history. "This block had some trouble back in the 30s, she said over coffee. Depression hit hard. Folks disappeared sometimes." Dad laughed it off as old wives' tales. But I listened, my imagination sparked. That evening, exploring the basement, I discovered a loose floorboard. Underneath was a small box with letters dated 1932, addressed to a woman named Clara from her husband, Edward. They spoke of hard times, debts, and a dark shadow over the family. I hid the box in my room, reading the letters by flashlight, feeling like a detective in one of my pulp novels. Mary started complaining about nightmares, dreams of a lady in white wandering the halls. Mom soothed her, blaming the move. But one night, I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow and deliberate. Peeking out, I saw nothing but shadows. The air felt heavier, charged with an unspoken tension. I told myself it was the house settling, but deep down, a seed of unease took root. Chapter 3. Whispers of the past. As autumn painted the leaves in fiery hues, the oddities escalated. School was in full swing, and I made a friend named Tommy Riley, a freckled Irish kid with a passion for history. We spent afternoons biking around the neighborhood, sharing stories. Tommy told me about the house's previous owners, the Whitmans. They say old man Whitman went mad after his wife died, he whispered, locked himself in the attic and starved. Cops found him weeks later. Intrigued, I delved deeper. At the library, I pored over microfilm reels of old Chicago Tribune articles. In 1935, Edward Whitman was arrested for the suspected murder of his wife, Clara, though her body was never found. He claimed she had run away, but neighbors heard screams. Released for lack of evidence, he lived as a recluse until his death in 1940. The house sat empty for years before being sold multiple times, each family leaving abruptly. Back home, I confronted Dad with the clippings. He scoffed. Ghost stories to scare kids. Focus on your studies. But Mom looked pale, glancing at the locket she'd found. That night, Mary woke screaming, claiming the lady in white had touched her arm. We found a faint bruise, like fingers. Dad checked the windows for intruders, finding none. I lay awake, listening to the wind howl, wondering if the past was seeping into our present. One rainy afternoon, alone in the house, I heard whispering from the walls, faint, indistinguishable words. Pressing my ear to the plaster, it sounded like, "Help me." My heart raced. I fled to my room, burying myself in books, but the whispers echoed in my mind. Chapter 4. Shadows deep in winter blanketed Chicago in snow, turning the city into a monochrome wonderland. But in our house, the cold felt deeper, unnatural. The furnace struggled, and drafts whispered through cracks. Mary's nightmares worsened. She drew pictures of a pale woman with hollow eyes. Mom took her to a doctor, who prescribed rest and warm milk at school. Rumors spread about our house. Kids teased me, calling it haunted. Tommy and I decided to investigate. We sneaked into the attic one Saturday, armed with flashlights. Amidst cobwebs, we found a trunk with Clara's belongings, dresses, a diary. The entries started joyful, chronicling her marriage in 1928, but darkened with the Depression. Edward's temper flared. He accused her of infidelity. The last entry, "He knows. God help me." As we read, a gust slammed the attic door shut. The light bulb shattered, plunging us into darkness. Panic surged. We fumbled for the door, hearing footsteps circling us. Finally escaping, we vowed never to return. That night, Dad found the diary I'd smuggled out. Furious, he burned it in the fireplace, saying, "No more nonsense." But the incidents multiplied. Objects moved, keys vanished, reappearing in odd places. Mom heard crying from the basement. One evening, during dinner, the chandelier swung violently, though no wind stirred. We stared in silence, the air thick with fear. Chapter 5. The turning point. Spring brought thawing snow and blooming flowers, but our home felt like a prison. Mary's health declined. She grew pale, whispering to invisible friends. Mom confided in me. "I see her too, Jack." In mirrors, watching. Dad, stubborn, denied everything, working longer hours to escape. I sought help from Father O'Brien at the local church. He listened gravely, mentioning possessions and unrestful spirits. "Sometimes tragedy binds souls," he said, promising to bless the house. But before he could, tragedy struck point. One night, a storm raged. Lightning illuminated the yard, revealing a figure under the oak tree, a woman in white, digging. Dad grabbed his shotgun, venturing out. We watched from the window as he approached. A scream pierced the night, not Dad's, but ethereal. He fired wildly, then collapsed. Rushing out, we found him unconscious, muttering about Clara grabbing him to the hospital. Doctors said heart attack, but I knew better. The entity was growing stronger, feeding on our fear. Chapter 6. Descent into madness with Dad recovering. The house became a battleground. Mom barricaded doors, sprinkling salt as per folklore. Mary refused to sleep alone, claiming Clara wanted her as a companion. I experienced visions, flashes of 1930s life, Edward's rage, Clara's terror. Tommy helped research more. We learned Clara was buried in an unmarked grave after her disappearance, but rumors said Edward hid her body in the house. We searched the basement, prying up floorboards. Under one, we found bones, human remains wrapped in decayed fabric. Horrified, we called the police. They excavated, confirming it was Clara, strangled. The case reopened, but the disturbance intensified. Poltergeist activity, furniture levitating, walls bleeding red liquid that smelled of iron. Mom cracked, screaming at shadows. Mary vanished one afternoon, found in the attic, catatonic, clutching the locket. Chapter 7. Confrontation summer returned, hotter than before. Dad home but changed, haunted eyes, whispering to himself. Father O'Brien arrived for an exorcism of sorts. Candles lit, prayers chanted. The house rebelled, windows shattered, winds howled indoors that I in the climax. Clara manifested, pale, bruised neck, eyes pleading. She spoke through Mary. He killed me. Bury me proper. We realized Edward's spirit lingered too, protective or vengeful. Dad, in a trance, confessed seeing Edward in mirrors, urging silence. The priest pressed on, but Edward attacked, possessing Dad, who lunged at Mom with unnatural strength. Chapter 8. The fall chaos ensued. I tackled Dad, breaking the possession momentarily. The priest banished Edward's spirit with holy water, but Clara remained, sorrowful. We promised to rebury her remains with honors. As we prepared, the house trembled. Beams cracked, floors buckled. Evacuating, we watched from the street as the structure groaned, collapsing inward like a dying beast. Neighbors gathered, whispering of curses to eye in the rubble. Clara's bones were recovered. We held a funeral, laying her to rest in a cemetery. Chapter 9. Aftermath. We moved to a small apartment downtown, shattered but alive. Dad's health failed. He passed that winter, heart weakened. Mom turned to faith, rarely speaking of the horror. Mary recovered slowly, but scars remained. Night terrors, aversion to old houses that I threw myself into writing, chronicling the events as therapy. Tommy and I drifted, the experience too raw. Years later, in 1960, I revisited the site. A new house stood, modern and bland. But locals said strange things still happened. Whispers, shadows. The past never truly dies. Chapter 10. Reflection. Now, in my twilight years, I look back on 1952 as the year innocence shattered. The Harlan family, once hopeful, emerged broken. Clara found peace, but at what cost? Tragedy echoes, a reminder that some homes harbor more than memories. They cradle the dead. If you ever buy an old house in Chicago, listen closely. The walls might speak.